ሰላም ጤና ይስጥልኝ። የራይዝ አዲስ ፖድካስት ተከታዮች ዛሬ ከቃል ኪዳን መኩሪያ ጋር ነን። ቃል ኪዳን እንግዲህ በጣም ብዙ ኤክስፒሪየንሶች አሏት። and I think ራስሽን ትንሽ አስታወቂና and then we'll get into the conversation.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rise Addis Podcastዎች, viewers, እና የራይዝ አዲስ ቤተሰብም እዚህ ኢንቫይት ስላደረጋችሁኝ I'm so delighted to have this conversation.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. So, ዳና እንዳለችው ስሜ ቃል ኪዳን ነው. I am here to talk about my business, Clear Skies Technology, and also talk about the journey in a little bit about my life and about my business. No, but I'm delighted, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So, Arshit, let's start from the beginning. So, born and raised.
Yes.
No, born in Ethiopia, raised in Kenya.
Kilo. Born in 6 kilo, raised for about a year of my life, Ziu Addis Ababa. ከዛ በአመት ተኩል ወደ ኬንያ ንባረግ።
Okay.
So a lot of my formative years, Nairobi, Kenya ነበርኩኝ. ከዛ በኋላ I went to the US college, እና ለማስተርስ. And then after about a year or so, ወደ ናሚቢያ የሚባል ሀገር. Do you know where Namibia is?
South Africa? Like?
Southwest.
Southwest.
Yes. እና ናሚቢያ የሚባል ሀገር ለአንድ አመት ኖሬያለሁ. It was a really transformative experience. ከዛ went to the US for a little while.
But I do want to kind of dive in. Like, so she went. How was Nairobi?
How was it growing up?
Oh,
Yeah, it was all I knew.
okay.
Like I had no choice in moving there. My parents were studying Nairobi, so I think I thought I was a Kenyan, but
Makes sense.
I used to sing the national anthem, the Kenyan national anthem, በስዋሂሊ 3 verse በስዋሂሊ በእንግሊዝኛ መንገዳኛ ቤት. ግን of course we also had a very strong Eritrean, Ethiopian community in Nairobi. So I knew we were different ከጎረቤት because ቀዳሚ እንጀራ ይጋገርልኛ ቤት ከዛ ሁሉ No, like actually over the weekend.
Over the weekend,
I just እንጀራ ይጋገራል እና ኔቨሮቻችን ህንዶች ኬንያኖች ይመጡ ነበር. They loved it. So we knew we were different. Obviously በዛ ቤት በአማርኛ ነው የሚያናግሩን. But I was very great, I think, in the Kenyan society. Swahili ከአንድ አመት ከሁለት አመት ነው የማወራው. So yeah, I think it was great. In hindsight, አሁን adult ሆኜ
2020.
I realized it was also a privilege, right? ከብዙ culture ጋር exposed, በትንሽ እድሜ exposed ሲሆን and I enjoyed, I think, in hindsight again, ያኔ I didn't like school that much, but I realized it was tough. በጣም competitive ነበር. Schools in Kenya ማለት all you do is study. ስለ ትምህርት ቤት ብቻ ነው. You want to be አንደኛ. So I appreciate that. And it's also home አሁን, so I think as an adult I'm so happy to have many homes,
Third culture kid.
Exactly.
So US.
Yes.
ተማርሽ?
So US የሄድኩት ምክንያት ለመማር ነው. So my undergrad was in general sciences.
Okay.
So I was leaning towards biology, that space. But master's, well, yeah, I think በዛ it's either a medical doctor or a PhD doctor. So
I was tapping into like your East African heritage, doctor መሆን.
But I enjoyed it. Like I remember like genetics class. Leni, like general science was really, applicable number. I wanted to learn something that was just like directly applicable, like anatomy and physiology. Sidnamar, but I was like, I knew all the body parts, the muscles, and how the bones and the muscles work together. Kazala Masters, I studied public health. It was very, public health has always been around. Again, I think from the education perspective, it was starting to become very popular, يعني. And I was very interested, especially the policy surrounding.
Okay.
So yes, I studied public health and then the master of it. And that's sort of what led me to Namibia. Dammit.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I won a grant. At the time, I was with the Sub-Saharan Africa Chamber of Commerce, based in Pennsylvania. And so I wrote a grant and I won a lot of money to go and action project it. And Project Tudemo, it tied road traffic accidents. So Namibia, surprisingly, like low population there, 2 million. The number one cause of death is road traffic accidents. Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy. So we went and we did the first study that had been done in like over 20 years. So TenderSure research aspect number, and we also built a tool. An app at the time that would track road traffic accidents, because ችግሩ Namibia, it's not that they don't have state-of-the-art rescue emergency vehicles or services. It's the second least or least densely populated countries in the world.
Okay.
So by the time someone comes to you, you're dead. Because like, let me in. So we did, our app had like, first aid, what to do if you're on your own and you have an accident, like how you can help yourself. Emergency ቁጥር ደግሞ አላቸው that's run, it's a parastatal ነፃ service ታገኛለሽ up to a certain amount. So we put all of that in an app. And now, experience was very pivotal because it really got me thinking about technology for the first time. So
intro to technology.
Both my brothers are in the technology space, so I had exposure, very close exposure. Then Larasi, just going through that process, I was the PI, the principal investigator, Project Lifeline Namibia. So I had to learn a lot about what I was asking subcontractors to do. I got to learn a lot, and I was also learning from a place of no experience, because I've never been in that space before. So I learned even more, made mistakes for sure.
Must have been tough.
It was very tough. Well, the country part was great. I love hiking. Yeah, and I always wanted to hike Sususflay. They have the highest mountains in the world, and so I would go hiking a lot in Namibia.
Nice.
The country was surprisingly like very, very different from East Africa, I have to say. But also it opened my eyes to, Namibia, upper middle income country. It's a very prosperous country, and it was great exposure for me, leaving the US, coming back home to the continent, and just seeing how affluent Africans are.
Yeah, and can be.
Right? So that exposure was great. Kenya, safari lanjalo. Maybe a safari is on another level. It's luxury safari through and through. And now, exposure was, I think, in hindsight, again, really good for me to see at the beginning of my career. So that's how I got into tech.
Yeah, okay. So we moved back to the US once the grant was over.
So moved back to the US, and when I moved back to the US, two things were very clear to me. And Daniel is that I wanted to be on the continent. I saw that I really loved being in Africa, and I was willing to do anything to be, Debo Africa, preferably East Africa. But after about 9 years in the US, close to a decade, I was like, it's time for me to be here in the continent. It was also clear that I had to be in the technology space, specifically mobile technology, because I saw that it was very relevant to Africa. So this, just to give you time perspective, was 12 years ago, right? So the mobile technology space was
when you went back to the US.
Yes, okay. Yes. So when I went back to the US, so those were the two things that were so strong to me. How I was going to go back, I do not know. Then a project to wrap up ነበረብን ያው በዛን ጊዜ ደግሞ family pressures, like even here is right, like the expected thing is to stay in the US, I did. And to you to get a job.
Because you made it.
You made it. Hey, like,
You crossed the Pacific.
you crossed the Atlantic. Anyway.
Oh, Atlantic.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So but I felt this conviction, if I'm being honest. I'm like, this is actually what I want to do. And I think in life you get these moments that are so clear to you of conviction, where it's clear you should be here, whether or not you act on it. But I did that. And I prayed. I also prayed because I was like, to come back. I was like, I really want to come back. I don't know who's going to hire me. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I want to be back home, and I want to work in technology. And I don't want to study yet, because I was so afraid after my master's. I was like, I need a break from school. So no, I was like, I wanted on the job training. At that point, I just wanted like salary and do one. And so moved back to the US. This time I was in the DC area. Okay. And so wrap up here. I get a call from a good friend, and he obviously knew about the project in Namibia. He knew how big it was. So he calls me asking for a reference for a personal assistant. Guadenyao company. Naya company was a software development company, and they made software solutions essentially for telcos across Africa. ከዚህም በፊት ስለዛ company ነግሮኛል. Like for at least a year he was telling me about them. He actually helped the founders meet. And now so he's like, እንደዚህ እየሰሩ ነው እኮ እንደዚህ እያደጉ ነው እና እሰማ ነበር ብዙ አያስተዋልም. Okay, because at this time I said, wait, tell me more about the company. Yeah, so he told me, he's like, anyway, so he told me more. And I was like, who are they looking for? The personal assistant. It's also Nairobi. I said, you know what? That job is for me. No, that's my job. That isn't my job. And he's like, what do you mean? You just led this huge project. Do you know who you are? You have a master's. Like, I want them, like, content experiences, but I'm into, I said, I got you. I got you. Like, this is actually for me. I'm not referring anyone. And, and 2 months later, I was at my desk in Nairobi, booking flights for the exec team. I was a personal assistant. And how extravagant. I was halfway there. Oh my God. Yeah. So it was, I knew I was supposed to be there. I remember the first day I walked into the office, and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. The rest we'll figure it out. Yeah. For now, let me book the flights. Let me make the appointments. Let me, But I was so lucky to work with such gracious leadership who quickly saw, my drive, and quickly saw my passion. And were so gracious to say, like, to push me to say, hey, but I wanted to just pick whichever department you want to be in, pick. But one of the things that I was also doing, because I had a lot of, I'd finished my work pretty early, is I'd shadow R&D, I'd shadow, the ops team, BD, sales, understand the product, understand how technology works. And I spent a lot of time doing that, and just understanding like what constitutes, a software development company, And አንዳንዱ ነገር እስካሁን አይገባኝም, ግን I found that I really enjoyed the operations, BD, sales part. I felt that I had a natural inclination towards that. And you are a bubbly person, right? Hey, I think it's also just the flow of things. Like, it's what attracted you. Thank you. Yeah, so the company is called Comza. Okay. And when I joined, I think they had been in about, I think it was like their 3rd or 4th year. Okay. But they grew so rapidly. Yeah. And at the time, we were in 24 markets across the continent. Middle East and Asia.
Crazy.
So it was insane. We were on a flight every other week. We were we had a product that was doing very well across telco, and one thing about telco is it's so intense, right? Because telco is per billing is by the second, so literally every second matters. If you launch a new product, you don't wait you don't wait on summit. You're counting the hours. Am I making more money? Am I losing money?
Am I contributing?
Exactly. I knew like Yanni Kwampayim was so different. I was speaking in abbreviations. Like, what's the ARPU? What's this? What's that? I was such a different person. In terms of my language, it was very fast paced. You'd be driving to work, or you'd be driving to work, and you'd get a call, and they're like, "We actually need you in Kigali. Like, you need to go." And yeah, you just like go to the airport. Wow. And now, for a while, I'd always have my passport in my bag. So you go to Kigali, you go to the airport because you're in Kigali for the day, you come back. But it was so intense. I knew like, yeah, ብዙ አፍሪካ ሀገር election season አውቅ ነበር because during elections, generally we make more money. Sometimes we lose, but that like I just knew a lot of interesting facts.
Is there a logic behind it?
I think people are calling to check on each other, and and you know our solution was airtime lending platform. So people are calling each other a lot to just make sure, and then if they don't have credit on their phones, then they'll borrow. So generally, we made a lot of money then, but it was my business to make sure that we made as much as possible. We had targets. It was very intense, but you also learned a lot more about business. You learned a lot more about the macros of like any country, because if your numbers went down, it was your business to go. Like, I remember Hindagar. If I can share one example, we were working with a smaller telco, and one of the wealthiest people in India launched a telco, and he had free minutes, free calls, free texts. So all of a sudden, one day, our numbers just dipped. And we couldn't figure it out because Nairobi. And for a couple of hours, we were like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, because nothing was making sense. And then come to find out, our counterparts in India were like, oh, this and this telco launched and they're giving away free minutes. And that was the case for about 2 months. Okay. And it just really beat into our revenue. And so these things happen, right? So you just have to be so aware of what's happening on the ground constantly. And the team was a Pan-African team that I worked with. So you're constantly colleagues, you're constantly being stretched. For me, because I did not have telco nor technology experience, the stretching for me was on another level, I would get calls from CEOs of telcos being like, what's going on with my product? Because our product accounted for about it was number one performing value-added services, what we say, for that telco. So they'd be like, like when you're getting a call from a telco CEO, it's a big deal. But it also helps you manage people, because you're constantly managing up, you're constantly managing down, sideways, everything, Really, you need to be on your engineer's good side, because whether you like it or not, because they could cut it. Engineers, then you realize, the company engineers are the bread and butter. If we can go and we can promise, our clients the world, then you come back and you're like, oh shit, it's like tomorrow. But yeah, I think it really stretched me in so many ways. But it also made me curious about Ethiopia, and what was happening to East. Naturally, I wanted to know, how are we doing telco-wise? So because I was in Nairobi, ብዙ መጣ ነበር ወደ Ethiopia, not see the situation. This is about 11 years ago. Time flies. So it was 11 years ago, and we only had one telco then, and VAS was very, very nascent. The value-added services space.
Do you mind if you go into that ትንሽ and then we'll come back to your Ethiopia. Because what is value-added services?
Yes. So typically value-added services is anything that the telco provides, any service the telco provides other than its core of like call, SMS, data. So anything else, for example, the service we were giving, it's airtime lending platform, that's a VAS. And then you get TIK numbers on your phone. I'm sure you get a lot of those on your phone, or you get but that is all categorized under VAS. Caller ring backbone, and then basically let's say you hear music. CRBT, that's a big one. That's VAS service. Initially, fun fact, when M-Pesa launched in Kenya, it was known as a VAS. Oh no, it grew and became its own, mobile money services as its own standalone. But yeah, essentially that's what VAS is. It stands for value-added services, and it's a very lucrative business in most African countries, including Ethiopia. So Yanni, I was so curious about the space. I'd spent a lot of time at Tele to see where they were at in terms of their understanding and their willingness to partner with us. And eventually, I always knew that there was an opportunity. I didn't know when the market would open. I didn't know when it would, but eventually I actually registered a business. Here in 9 years ago. So registered business, a VAS business specifically. It's called Clear Skies. My co-founder is and we registered because we saw an opportunity in the market. And I'm glad we did. I'm still employed at Komza, still busy, still living in Nairobi. And it was a very slow start.
It was hopeful, would you say?
I would
When you started?
No. I mean, I think I'm a very optimistic person. I knew it would open up. I knew that, and the numbers made sense.
Yes.
And then and I made friends at Telecom, because I'd always go and the marketing team. The doors are not. And they'd be like, oh, ሰዎች እኮ ገጠር ሆነው ይደውሉልናልና ይጠይቁናል። ለምንድን ነው እዛ ካርድ መግዛት ስለማንችል ለምንድን የማትሰጡንና በኋላ እንከፍላለን፣ በወለድም ቢሆን እንከፍላለን ሁሌ ይጠይቁናል። That's what we give. So there's obviously complications about launching a service like that because it's a state-owned company. I have to say, in the last 8 years or so, obviously Telecom has changed completely. It's so amazing to see. It's so hopeful to see, because the telecom sector, it's a backbone, right? And for us, it's the largest ISP. So if they don't grow, then we literally cannot grow as a country, right? So I've been bullish about that sector. For since I got in it. I'm all about expanding services, and across the country. And it's a lot. It's a lot of work. I wish more people appreciated, and then the network I'm on both sides, right? I always wish the government could do more. I also wish that people appreciated how much investment goes into this, and how it costs so much, right? And it's just not installing. It's like the maintenance, it's the upkeep, everything. But it's impressive. It's that goes without saying to see how far we've come.
Just because you see it on your phone and it's just something that's constantly there. You don't question. በቃ መስራት አለበት the work that goes behind a massive building.
It is. And I always appreciate, in telco generally, there's the software side and the hardware side. So the hardware side is the towers that you see. Some people don't even notice.
No.
Tele tower, report that costs so much. It's such a huge investment on any country, and it's because I suppose I'm in the space. I'm always keeping an eye out for that. But yeah, it's been amazing, and I think with all the changes that happened, then there was an audience, right, for some of the products that we were doing. I remember, like we've really seen such a change. Even the targets that folks at Tele have, they'll be calling us, like, and I'm like, I love this. I love this, and even just to see the knowledge grow, so I think telco is always going to be a part of me. I enjoy that space. I love reading stuff. And then obviously, Bezariam Stammet, Safaricom joined. Yeah. It definitely proved a lot of my hypothesis earlier that this sector, when you came, would grow. Exactly. So it was good to see that. When we welcomed them, right? They were like, Karibu, as we say in Nairobi, means welcome. So that's a little bit about my telco journey.
So I know you mentioned your company, right?
Yes.
So, and you're employed, right?
Yes.
What does that look like? So
Sure.
You were employed because of you decided to start a company in Ethiopia.
Yes.
Where does the balance come? Because him it's demanding, him I'm pretty sure was demanding.
Yeah. So when we started Clear Skies Technology, we were very slow.
Okay.
And in understanding and learning, we actually wanted to learn about Ethiopia. Remember for me, I left when I was 1.
Yeah.
My co-founder was based Ethiopia. I was ከብዙ state ድርጅት ጋር እየሰራ ነበር. And I was learning from the market, but I would definitely network a lot. Just tell folks I was here.
Be out there.
But as you rightfully said, I was also employed. So and I was cautious, I didn't have much experience. I wasn't sure how the market would accept us. I don't think the ecosystem barely existed, for companies like ours. And, that were small and medium sized. I think and especially in that niche space. So I think it was actually a smart move to stay employed, and also do this and have Rook here. ግን ምንድን ነው የተማርኩት ስለ ኢትዮጵያ ደግሞ eventually I realized like I have to be actually here on the ground if I'm going to make things move. This is my passion. Ethiopians need FaceTime, I became the girl who lives in Kenya and is trying to run a business here. Yeah. And I think to also learn, you need to go through several cycles of just that journey, that business journey, and really understand how the country works. So I did take my time. Totally I took my time. I knew exactly what I was getting into. I knew Ethiopia would be very different to Kenya. I was not naive at all. So,
did you have people telling you as well?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people encouraged me to move, especially.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I had a great career.
Yeah.
I had a great career. I loved my clients. Hopefully they love me back. And Ethiopia was the unknown, right? It was foreign. People were like, just check it out for a year and then come back. So yeah, I can't say that I was necessarily encouraged. My family was definitely encouraging. They're like, we have your back always. They're like, we have your back always. Of course, cautiously, I was the first in the family to start a business. Okay, so that's also, foreign territory. Yes.
Stay safe, because employment is
exactly. But eventually, I left full-time employment. And I left also because I did get that, that feeling that it was time. It was time to just give my all. I had established good networks and good relationships. And I thought, this is time. If I'm going to do this, let me do it now. Let me give it my all. And I'm glad I did. Growth doesn't occur in our comfort zones. It just doesn't. I wish it did. I really wish it did. Yeah. Oh my God. What is this year? The alarm is going off. No. So it was. I juggled it a little, but it wasn't realistic, right? The employee and the being an owner, CEO.
Yeah. One has to outweigh the other. Right. Okay. So you came, and then you became CEO.
I sure did.
How was that like? Because I think we discussed right? Like being an employee, you're cool.
Yeah.
I can go be an employee somewhere else. CEO?
Yeah, it's different. I really appreciate employee life now that I'm a CEO. Like, I really appreciate it. I'm just like, there's definitely a time and place for everything. I wish I appreciated it more when I was an employee. But it's definitely very different. I think my journey has really showed me how much self-work it takes, because you're constantly facing yourself as a CEO, right? You're facing your self-limiting beliefs, you're facing your fears, you're facing your health routines, because really everything matters, and I've really had to look within and even reprioritize my business as it's grown, to give it the place that it deserves, right? Because I think sometimes as founders, the business and us, we're the same. Like you can't even differentiate. But as
Sinakantan.
no. I think one of the things I'm proud about is really recognizing that those are two separate entities. But it's been the greatest opportunity to work on myself. I think being a CEO that's been the synonym for me. It's like really, and these things are masked in different ways, obviously, right? So it's about going through certain phases of my life with the business, and just seeing how I react as a leader, right? But also understanding that like Alki is not only a leader, right? Kalkidan, there's so many things that make Kalkidan. I play different roles in my life. I'm just not the CEO of Clear Skies. And it's also very freeing, right? Because then you're like, wow, I can. Then you just. I think it releases a lot of pressure, and it makes your world just a lot colorful. And then somehow you actually perform better, and you're able to be there in an appropriate way.
Okay.
Wow.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think hey, different people have different ideas of what leadership is or being a CEO, right? Then I'd love to hear leadership journeys. Because management is one thing, right? Leadership is another thing. Because you've been managing, like you said, up, down, diagonally, down, right? So managing people's expectations, managing characters, so as a leader, how do you maneuver?
Yeah. It's hard. I think, let me maybe share in phases. At the beginning, remember, I was also coming back home. And I'm in a different culture, one that I wasn't necessarily raised in. And so I was met with different types of personalities that I wasn't necessarily exposed to. And when you are the one in the leadership position, and you are trying to keep the ship sailing, and realizing that it's really people are the primary ingredient for this. It was very hard, I had a lot of friction. I did also meet great people along the way that were like my backbone. I have to give credit where it's due. But there was also really challenging situations. But it also, again, it comes back to, I think, also doing the work, I have to say, and also understanding the environment I'm in and having conversations early with people, setting your boundaries, setting standards, and saying, "Baka, like, this is how we do things at Tears, guys. This is how, definitely naivety played a part in like people relations, medyo magare. But I also talk, I share, and I'm lucky to have such a great community of people who tell me like, "Oh, ndezi lang natarikim, ndezi, kailan lang time," which was very helpful. I think another thing is like just your community. Like you got to talk to people, man. You could not go through things alone. I don't think we were born or put in this world to be islands. Share. Like I'm always surprised. And like salaw ka. I just don't share. It could be something very simple, like you're trying to get a contact, or you're stuck with something, and you just like keep it to yourself. Because like you just mentioned someone, they're like, "Oh, they're my brother-in-law." They're like my amazing. You're like, "Oh my gosh, why didn't I speak sooner?" So I thank God that I'm that kind of person. So that was also very helpful. Good tamaskan. I think as the years have gone by, I've gotten to meet so many incredible people whom I've had the opportunity to work with. I also do consultancies on the side, which is always fun because you get to work with different clients. I also enjoy my clients and Clear Skies as well. The clients at Sari, you get to meet different team members, and you're also managing, as they manage you, you're managing them. And I think that's also part of the, the people relations, and I'm a people's person. I have to put that out there. I'm a people's person. I enjoy people, but I've also realized like it's also healthy to have boundaries, even with people you enjoy. I don't like it's very important to have.
Because you can't have like a whole cake by yourself.
I don't know. Exactly. I don't know. Exactly. Yeah. And I look forward to, like you can't always get it right. There's always going to be personality and no. And that's okay. I think I'm a lot more confident now. And like, okay, by the way, if it's not working, it's also okay. It's not the end of the world. But I also hope that you're leaving with something that you've learned, that you're better. I always say that. I don't want you to leave the same way you came. And now, that's a slide. We have people relations.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you would say that, hey, your own personal experiences, in addition to your own character, have added to.
Yeah. I think it just takes a lot of self-work, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not like feeding into yourself, you're not building yourself, like how can you be a better leader? How can you be better there for others, for your team? I think for me, it always comes down to myself. Like when you're telling or guiding people to do things that achirasish you haven't done or you haven't worked on, it's not organic, and it probably won't last, right? Because people don't follow what you say, they follow your action and what you do and how you live. Like that's always the ultimate test that of leadership. Yeah,
exactly. And you've worked with really big brands, right? So locally, like Telecom, and then Tessa, so like Vodafone. Right. So what was that experience like? Hey, internationally, locally, like what does that look like?
It always comes down to like knowing your stuff, and when you don't know your stuff, it's also being humble enough and wise enough to ask. And I always encourage people, like I think sometimes we can be fearful, because we think we're going to appear a certain way if we ask questions. But I'm always an over asker, if that's a word. I'm big on that. Like if something is not clear, something doesn't make sense, or if you cannot accomplish something by a certain deadline, ask. Like, Nasul, they're human beings, right? I think at the behind every corporation, regardless of how big or small or international or local they are, like what natural that make up that organization. And I think setting expectations, setting standards, because when you run a business or when you have any kind of agreement, there's usually terms, right? These deadlines, there's an agreement that like እኔ ያቺ ዮርዳና ይሄንን ሰርቪስ እሰጥሻለሁ አንቺ ደግሞ በዚህ ሰዓት ትከፍይኛለሽ. Yeah. So if you can't meet your side of the obligation, then or Bicha, it's always good to make sure first that you understand what it is, the services you're giving, and also just communication. I'm big on communication. Yeah. I think for me, comms is, and maybe also naturally because I enjoy that part with people. It may come a little bit more naturally, but I think it's also something that I've had to work on. Having hard conversations. Sometimes something is not clear. Like you were like, okay, I get the 80%, good, 100% so fuzzy. It's kind of fuzzy. And sometimes maybe in the past I've overlooked that. I'm like, but I think this is what they meant. This is actually what they meant. Does he slow and does he not? I'm like, no. Because a lot of times the 20% becomes the 80% and clouds everything. Whoa, okay. So I'm big on over communication. And ብዙ ጊዜ what I found, especially with clients that we believe are, big and ምናምን, and even smaller ones, like let me preface this, is they appreciate that. They actually appreciate when you over clarify. They're like, it means you're listening. It means we're together. It means that I can trust you. So I found in my career, ask if you don't understand something, if you, and then also, as you clarify, like say exactly what it is you're going to be doing, because in a way, when you teach, even though you're not teaching, when you say it again, your action, but I'm so I think over communication is a big one for me. It's okay. Let's not assume. Oh, exactly. And I'm saying because if she. Because then you go back and you're like, yeah. And then you do whatever you think is right, or you call back to boss. Yeah. And in the person's mind, it's always been, okay, she got it. Yeah. Right? And then that's when you get to know it. Exactly. That the person then probably gets annoyed. Good if it's in the moment, like, hey, it's, it's for that, like, absolutely, the person is trying to understand. Yeah. And but I have to say, I think even if it's not in the moment, it's okay. Even if it's like a couple of days later, you're a bit embarrassed to be like, I've started working on this. Then we'll clarify my and it's interesting because I think as I've gotten more senior or mature in my career, I've realized I asked a lot more questions than before. And is it lessons learned? It's definitely, it has to be, right? I'm so okay with, not looking stupid. That's okay. Looking stupid or looking like, because there's nothing like that. I've realized there's actually nothing like that. Like asking for clarification is not acting clueless or stupid or any of those instances. I think, have I been told I ask too many questions? Yeah, I have. I have been told by people, but it doesn't bother me just more. Because I would rather us be on the same page, 150%, than be on the same page, 80%. And if you do think it's too many, it's an issue on you. Right? Exactly. I'm trying to think my job. Exactly. So, maybe you should have explained better. Yeah. And I encourage people, like, if you do not understand the value that you're delivering for a client, then ask, and even for people building their companies, as I also am lucky enough to participate in a lot of volunteer opportunities where I host pitch competitions, We have one for Empower, and I, mentor young people, and I also encourage people like ask questions. If you're building a venture, if you're building a company, it's such a big deal.
And don't take it lightly. Ask questions like validate your product, your service, or your idea in the market. And the only way to do that is to get comfortable, get hungry with just asking questions, putting yourself out there.
Because the Ethiopia we're living in today is a very different one than when I first started. I have to preface that. I think with the growth of especially social media, I think has really democratized a lot of technology and access.
And then you were talking about how even locally there are really good brands that know their stuff, so know your stuff.
Yeah. But I think maybe a differentiation factor would be the competition.
Yeah.
I think in my exposure, international markets, you cannot sleep. The competition is intense, man. Like,
you cannot be caught like
you cannot like literally. There's a lot of pressure. Even staff, like staff can be working for like for you, and then the other like staff helps you for a competitor. And but it's also exciting, right? Because you also have to, pull up your socks. You have to make sure that you're giving them the best offer. I also have opportunity to sit on a bunch of boards, international and local. And if I'm also to compare, there's definitely like that competition. I also see it in those organizations, just with the staff and with some of the stuff that I'm exposed to. But the competition is rigorous. Like people don't stay because I'm not trying to, so you really have to be giving your value add for your employees. If it's not, and it's not only financial, right?
Yeah.
It also has to like either has a social element to it that's compelling. So I think I'd say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so with clear text, guys,
Yes.
what's going on? What's going on at home? What's the plan? Where we're going?
Thank you.
What are we seeing?
You never ask.
Listen more. Let's see.
So clear skies. We've been learning a lot. It's honestly with all the ups and downs, headaches, joyous times. It's honestly such a privilege to have this company and to be able to run this company. And I don't say that enough. I just have to point that out. And I appreciate the people I get to work with, both my team as well as our clients. So we offer technology solutions for enterprise clients. With all the learnings that we've had and with all the, understanding Ethiopia, we found a niche in the space. And so one of our products that I'm going to share today is end-to-end e-procurement platform called TenderSure. And so ከማኗል ጨረታ አገርን ማስወጣት ነው
digitize
that. So that's been such a great journey of building. I felt like a startup founder the last 2 years because there's been a rapid not only understanding the product but understanding the market that we're in, and just asking decisions. Are we relevant? How do we need it in this market? And Temascan, we're growing, we're doing well. There's ጥሩ ተቀባይነት አለ market ውስጥ. It's a solution that honestly enhances transparency. It enhances speed. It enhances from like the bulky manual process to like digitized process rate. It enhances that for any company, as small as the smallest company to the largest organization. So it's completely sector agnostic. And any entity in Ethiopia can tell you, if they're in procurement, just how much time it takes because the majority of it is manual. Now, so Yinya solution is really bringing like even just speed to that. And we have an amazing documents management system that stores everything for a period of 10 years according to the law.
Okay.
But it also, we have two sort of customers.
Yeah.
We have the client, we call it the client or the buyer, which is typically the company that wants to have a tender out. And then we have the suppliers, the entity that then applies. And so we offer tenders, RFQ, RFI, asset disposal, haraj, and yeah. And it's a very neat solution. And I'm still learning about the process, which I think is always amazing. There's clients who call us and they're like, "Doesn't matter, and we build that. And it's also good to have exposure to companies. I think that, I guess, data pool, as you would have it, has been fantastic. Just to see like who's doing what. In the market, to really understand and to get a good enough wide perspective of it.
Okay.
With the clients that we've worked with, it's been so gratifying to just see that growth. Yeah, like
a projection.
but to really see us solving
their issues,
a pain point for them, and even when we go pitch, majority of the clients, always tell us like, this takes up so much of our time, the manual aspect, You can imagine, like, usually tender box, most direct, it's like a huge bulk of item. And then, and like, to submit to Tariki, you have no less than like 300 pages.
Yeah.
And if you have 10 or 15 and the staff are expected to sign every single page. Crazy. And read every single page by law. Like, and this had to be, something had to be done with this, with our solution, we have a data trail. So if you come in as a buyer or a supplier or even us as support, it always tracks who did what at what time, what they added, what they changed. It adds security. The data policies are very robust because procurement, right? And then is that security. So it's been amazing building that. So that's what we've been up to. It's taking up most of our time.
Yeah.
But it's really exciting. I think at the core of what I do, it's actually what I started off with. It's like value added services. I'm adding value. And with TenderSure, I have no doubt that we are. And I'm so grateful.
What's next?
What's next? You gotta invite me back. You gotta invite me back. I hear you. Sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for being part of the podcast, for sharing your journey, sharing your experiences and your expertise. Yeah, and in the future, we'll catch up again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for letting me share my journey. I appreciate it. Sure.